The Sabbath presents an interesting paradox. On the one hand, it is a tremendous blessing, a gift from the Creator himself. An old hymn admonishes, "Don't forget the Sabbath, the Lord our God hath blessed. Of all the week the brightest, of all the week the best. It brings repose from labour, it tells of joy divine, its beams of light descending with heavenly beauty shine." And yet the paradox is, as precious as the Sabbath is to those who keep it, it is also a burden. Such words may sound shocking, even offensive, but if we're being strictly honest, it can also be the most difficult day of the week. There are certain expectations that accompany what is deemed proper Sabbath observance. Wearing our best clothes to Sabbath morning worship generally requires special preparation. Cooking and cleaning ahead of time can be exhausting after a long week at work. Then there is the long list of everything that must not be done on the Sabbath. As great a blessing as the Sabbath is, it too often devolves into a burden as well. It certainly became so to the Jews. To this day, conservative Jews hire a Shabbat Goy, a Gentile, to come to their homes on Sabbath to perform menial tasks that would be work for the Jew to do. These include such things as turning on lights or lighting the stove. The problem is, hiring somebody to work for you on the Sabbath breaks the fourth commandment just as much as if you'd done the work yourself. The fourth commandment clearly states, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labour and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahweh thy Elohah. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates." Throughout his public ministry, Yahushua tried to teach the people the blessing of true Sabbath observance. Mark 2 records, "And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck the ears of corn. And the Pharisees said unto him, Behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful?" The Pharisees were not accusing the disciples of stealing, rather they were accusing the disciples of working. The word translated corn also refers to grain. The Pharisees were accusing the disciples of harvesting on the Sabbath. Rubbing the grain between their hands to remove the chaff could be construed as threshing. Thus, the real complaint was that the disciples were breaking the Sabbath by working. Yahushua wanted to lift the heavy burden Sabbath keeping had become and transform it into the blessing Yah originally intended. He gently asked, "Have ye never read what David did when he had need, and was an hungered, he and they that were with him? How he went into the house of Yah in the days of Abiathar the high priest, and did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat but for the priests, and gave also to them which were with him?" The Saviour was trying to draw them beyond a legalistic observance of the Sabbath. Yahushua then made a statement that very beautifully establishes for all time that the Sabbath is meant to be a gift, not a burden. He said, "The Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath." Sadly, the Israelites were not interested in changing their practices. To this day, Sabbath keeping among the vast majority of Jews is not a spiritual blessing, but a traditional obligation. In speaking of the Pharisees, Yahushua said, "They bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye compass sea and land to make one proselyte, and when he is made, ye make him twofold more the child of hell than yourselves." There are very good reasons why many Sunday-keeping Christians accuse Sabbatarians of being legalistic, because they are. Satan has worked hard to spread this same attitude towards the Sabbath among Sabbath-keeping Christians. But that is not the fault of the Sabbath. Now, at the close of Earth's history, new light has come, restoring the Sabbath to the position Yahweh intended all along, a gift and a blessing. Many people wonder, why all the fuss over a day? I worship every day. This attitude stems from a mistaken view of the Sabbath as a burden rather than a delight. Furthermore, it suggests that there are certain obligations, as well as certain blessings, held solely in reserve for the biological descendants of Abraham, and this simply is not true. Peter declared, "Of a truth I perceive that Yahweh is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him." Yahweh's gifts are freely available to all, and that includes the gift of the Sabbath. Isaiah declared, "Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to Yahweh, to serve him, and to love the name Yahweh, to be his servants, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar, for mine house shall be called an house of prayer for all people. Yahweh, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith, Yet will I gather others to him, beside those that are gathered unto him." Satan knows the tremendous blessings available to all who will keep the Sabbath in the manner Yahweh intended. This is why he teaches the Sabbath was done away with at the cross, and for those who understand its continuing validity, he has made it a burden, heavy and grievous to be borne. For many Sabbatarians, it is the man-made traditions, the human interpretation of what constitutes proper Sabbath observance that makes them feel they are keeping the Sabbath holy. And yet it is these very things that turn their Sabbath day's blessing into a burden, and they don't even realize it. Gaining a true Sabbath day's blessing is not dependent on wearing the right clothes or fixing special foods. Delighting in the Sabbath is far more profound than anything so dependent on exterior factors, and it is gained by 3 simple steps. Isaiah 58 explains what these steps are. "If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahweh honourable, and shalt honour him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in Yahweh, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of Yahweh hath spoken it." This is the secret to delighting in the Sabbath. It is not our task to make the day sacred. The Sabbath is already sacred and holy because the Creator has already blessed and declared it so. It is our job to keep it so. Again, the 3 steps for delighting in the Sabbath are not doing our own work, not speaking our own words, and not seeking our own pleasure. Not doing our own work is clear and self-explanatory. We are not to do our own work during the holy hours of the Sabbath. People who claim the Sabbath was nailed to the cross, and besides they worship every day, are missing the point about no work. We are to worship every day. Starting the day with personal one-on-one time with the Creator is very important. But even with personal devotions, a normal work day is not the same thing as laying aside typical daily activities and focusing solely on Yahweh. On the Sabbath, Yahweh lays aside his work to focus on his most important treasure, you. Can't we do the same? Not speaking our own words on the Sabbath can be especially easy to forget. Whether we invite guests to join us for the Sabbath meal, or we join with other home-churching families to enjoy a potluck meal, speaking our own words happens far too often. Men may talk about work or the winning score of their favourite football team. Women may visit about their children or events occurring in the lives of mutual friends. This doesn't glorify Yahweh. Such talk shifts the focus away from Yah and onto secular matters. To truly delight in the Sabbath, it is important to speak Yah's words, not our own. Not seeking our own pleasure can appear self-evident. Obviously, you're not going to go to a ball game or concert during the sacred hours of the Sabbath, but seeking our own pleasure on the Sabbath reaches far deeper than either not speaking our own words or doing our own work. For people who have dedicated their life in service to Yah, this is especially important. After all, it's doing Yah's work, right? But the truth is, we all like doing Yah's work. It brings us joy. The Sabbath is not a time for me to seek my own delight. It is a time for me to seek Yahweh's delight. And when I do this, I then too am delighted. One of the many ways in which we can seek the Father's pleasure is by ministering to Him in the person of those around us. We are to be Yahweh's hands, to strengthen and help, His voice to comfort and cheer. Scripture teaches Yahweh literally feels everything His children feel. So when we alleviate suffering, sadness or loneliness around us, we are alleviating His suffering, sadness and loneliness. You literally bring Him joy. And in every way that we seek Yahweh's joy and seek His pleasure rather than our own, the sheer joy we receive in return far outweighs anything we have to give. When you learn what it truly means to delight in the Sabbath, it will revolutionize your Sabbath keeping. A wonderful transformation will take place. You actually look forward to the Sabbath in a way you never have before. And when the light fades, you will be sad to see it go. When the Sabbath is loaded down with man-made traditions and Pharisaical expectations, it is inarguably a burden. But when, in the simplicity of Yah's instructions, we do not do our own work, we do not speak our own words or seek our own delight, then our focus is where it should be, on Yahweh, the source of all love, joy and fulfillment. When this happens, you will see the law of Yahweh in an entirely new light. It will no longer be seen as a burden that was nailed to the cross. Instead, you will realize the law is a transcript of the very thoughts and feelings of the Almighty. The divine law allows us to gain glimpses of His hidden inner heart. And what we discover is pure beauty and holiness. A tremendous reward awaits all who delight in the Sabbath. You will belong to Yahweh. Your thoughts and feelings, your desires and aspirations will be in alignment with His. You will belong to Him. You will then be ready to spend eternity rejoicing in His presence. Don't feel discouraged if the Sabbath feels like a burden. Yahweh has given increased light on the Sabbath to teach us how to rejoice and delight in the Sabbath. Simply keep these three conditions given in Isaiah 58, and you will both honor Yahweh and delight in Him. The Sabbath will be your special time to be with your Maker and best friend. It will be such a delight you won't want to see it end. The blessings received will carry you through the week, sustaining you in every trial. Yah's Spirit will be your constant companion, and you will greet the next Sabbath with joy and eager anticipation. The Sabbath will truly be your delight. The Sabbath is a perpetual invitation to spend time one-on-one with your best friend. As you do this, you will become one with Him, He in you and you in Him, delighting in each other's company. The Sabbath is a joy that will continue to delight throughout the ceaseless ages of eternity. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith Yahweh. The invitation to spend time with your Creator is still open. He lays aside His work to spend time with you. Won't you do the same for Him?